Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to our 8th event this year. Actually, our last event for the year. We're very excited to have you all here. We also want to thank our very gracious hosts, Brandon and the PGA and Westernized. Brandon, why don't you just come and say hi?
Hi everybody, welcome to the home of Westernized, Elastic, and Rough House. Glad you guys are all here tonight. Tonight I'm representing the Producers Guild, and obviously you guys are all here because we have a Transmedia event related to producing. For those of you who don't know, though, the Producers Guild is a national nonprofit organization, and it protects, promotes, and represents the interests of all members of the producing team. So that is film, television, as well as new media, as well as transmedia since 2010, so that's very near and dear to all of you folks. And I'm going to list off some of the producing titles and roles that are eligible to be in the Producers Guild, because a lot of people aren't aware, and I would encourage all of you to ask me questions after if you're interested in joining. So this includes executive producers, producers, co-executive producers, supervising producers, senior producers, line producers, co-producers, associate producers, segment producers, field producers, story producers, production managers, visual effects producers, supervisors and coordinators, post-production supervisors and managers, and production and post-production coordinators. And another fun fact for those of you who don't know, George Stanton actually was the first transmedia producer to receive an on-screen credit that's recognized by the Producers Guild for Transformers from Paramount and Hasbro in 2010. So we feel like it's an exciting time for all transmedia producers to get involved, and all producers, and we encourage you to talk to me about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. So for those who didn't get all the references, I'm being very, very blunt here. Don't panic, I think, is something that should be said for this new world of transmedia. It's the first thing, because there's just so much. And really, I think Gary Hayes, a very famous transmedia producer and maven in the community, definitely sees us as the Catholic of artists, of creators, producers. Like, what do you have to do to actually become one of these transmedia producers? And this is the question, and this is the topic of tonight's event. What is a producer? What is a transmedia producer? What do we do? And what are these amazing women next to me, an all-women event, which I'm very, very, very happy about. The interesting thing is that according to the PGA, 48% of all producers in the PGA are women, which, if you know anything about the film and entertainment industry, it's a very, very high number of high-level, managerial level positions, to have 48% of the PGA being women.
Over 5,000 members.
Over 5,000 members. So it's a, yeah. So the biggest question we're going to talk tonight about is, what makes a perfect transmedia producer? And I created that image about a year ago, because when I try to explain to people, like Gary said, what is it exactly you do? I'm like, well, this. Sort of. So we'll talk more about that conversation a little bit later in our panel. We're going to first hear from each one of these wonderful ladies here, a little case study of what do they do, and then we kind of get into more of the what does this mean, how do you get about it, and this whole world of transmedia production. So our first speaker tonight is going to be Susan Bell. And she's got a very interesting case study. Susan has thought of herself as a storyteller ever since she won an elementary school writing contest. She's currently a creative technologist for Transmedia Storyteller Limited, which, if anybody knows, that's Robert Stratton's company, and Robert is our forefather of this meetup. It's designing interactive stories told across social media and mobile platforms. That's Transmedia Storyteller and their first product, which is Conductor. And here's Susan.
I had to do a fancy presentation. Okay, so my presentation is about alternate reality gaming. and I did an indie alternate reality game last summer, and it's called How I Learned Arcs Are Fascinating, Demanding, and Ultimately Rewarding. In 10 minutes. I've been given 10 minutes to go through this entire topic. Anyway, who am I? I am Susan. I am a creative technologist with Transmedia Storyteller. I'm also a film and TV producer, have been for 7 years. My main project I've worked on is Robot Chicken. And I'm an experienced designer of different games, one of them which is the Miracle Mile Paradox, which was produced with Transmedia LA. But tonight we're going to go into an indie project that I've been working on called the Los Angeles Ghost Patrol. This is a very large transmedia universe. It involves a team of paranormal investigators in the Los Angeles area. They actually do real paranormal investigations. They have a website at laghostpatrol.com where you can learn about haunted places in the LA area. Involved in the project is also a feature film. They do television appearances. Did a really great investigation at the Magic Castle, and afterwards you can ask me about what we found there because it was super creepy. And I've also produced live fictional haunting events with them for conferences such as WeirdCon, which is a gaming and LARPing conference. But tonight we're going to actually talk about alternate reality game that the team, we got together in the summer of 2011 and created an alternate reality game. And these kind of games are played via email, text, voicemails, puzzles, websites, YouTube, physical mailings, and we have players across the US and Europe. You're probably asking, if you don't know, what is an alternate reality game? So this is my really quick definition of it, subject to multiple interpretations from different people. But I'm calling it an interactive narrative set in the real world using multiple media to tell a story that may be affected by player actions. Remember that last part. So the game we played was called Carol's Haunting, or the Order of Umbra. Now this again is an indie ARG. It had really no funding. We probably spent less than $500 on it. The mythology here involves shadow people, which is a paranormal entity. The Pasadena's occult history, Dante's Inferno, and the Egyptian underworld. And so we wove that all together into a mythology for players to investigate. The main characters are Lucas, Carol, the occultist, and the apostate. Oh, no, go ahead. So the game itself began with an email to 85 players of the site called unfiction.com. They have an opt-in board, so I basically took a bunch of people's email addresses and sent an email out to them, basically announcing the game. So these people got an email from a character named Lucas that basically says, you know, he's scared of something, and there's a piece of a puzzle attached. Within 15 minutes of this email going out, there was a new forum on Unfiction where players had started talking about this. That is how rabid this fan base is. So it led on to other players emailing back and forth with this character. This was not automated. We actually had the 4 members of the team were writing these emails, trying to explain what was going on, but without giving away part of the story. They put together this cryptic Latin-based puzzle written in the 16th century alphabet from the pieces of the puzzle attached. And then they had to actually figure out what the alphabet was so they could understand the letters, figure out the text, which was the Latin portion from Dante's Inferno, basically translate some other things, and then figure out where the photo was taken. That actually took about a day for players to figure out. And they put that all together. They started Googling. After they Googled this, they found the Los Angeles Ghost Patrol's website, where the team itself had done a very real investigation of the Devil's Gate Dam in Pasadena, but we had hidden, after the fact, in the code of the webpage, italicized letters that spelled out Carol's Haunting. So that led to a blog. So they found the character Lucas, now they found the character Carol. And Carol has a very in-depth blog that dated back before the game began. You know, it keeps going on and on. She has a lot of blog posts. Her dog who's her real life dog, by the way, became a character in the story. And so people started reading about her experience. Both these characters were being haunted. So there became more emails between her and the players, which then also introduced a working phone number that allowed voicemails and text messages between players and characters. You can actually call that number and it will still work today. And then we also shot videos that advanced the narrative and guided the players in what they should be doing. Oh.
I just checked my mail and this was in there today, and no idea what the hell that is. It's kind of weird down here, like some kind of symbol.
And these were not scripted. I literally sent her a postcard in the mail and said, do a video about what you find in your mail.
The order is wrong. Believe nothing he tells you, and it's signed A. I have no idea who A is. Let's look at that.
So she basically asked for help in figuring out who A is. And so at some point we found another character, the occultist. The occultist is not evil, but people were very wary of him at the beginning. And he asked people to sign up for the Order of Umbra. In ARGs, this is a way to get people's addresses to send in in-game mailings. And some people received very creepy postcards from another character called the Apostate. And then there was tweets. Twitter is used a whole lot because it's a public, it's more public than emails. And so characters would tweet at our characters and advance the story that way. They found more creepy websites and more puzzles. All these have hidden messages in them. That puzzle took like 5 days for people to solve. And then players also chose which characters they could support within the game, because we were not telling them what's good and what's evil. They could decide whether they wanted to choose the apostate side or the occultist side. So like Giovanni here, a player, basically says he's going to infiltrate the Order of Umbra to try to help this character, the apostate. They wrote their names backwards in the game. There's something within the game. And then we also held a live event during San Diego's Comic-Con. The characters said that they were going down there to solve something. Players online would actually help out and created a map for the characters. This is part of the puzzle that was down there. And then people who were actively playing after this game actually received more packets in mail. And so we actually sent out initiation packets to the Order of Umbra, where people could do a ritual to join this secret order. You get to write really fun stuff. And then these are actually player photos. We asked them for evidence that they had performed the initiation, and people would send us photos of what they had done. Now, the one thing that's really interesting with this game is that it is an instance of we had a player change the fate of a character. So Zobot, that's his Twitter name, he is a college student from Minnesota, as best I could guess, and he was the first person to actually tweet at the character called the occultist. And the occultist was very scary at the time. And so I actually grabbed a Facebook photo and sent it to him. So he tweeted back at the character, said, "What is going on? This character is like almost stalking me." He reached out and found my Facebook photo and sent it back to me with a crazy photo on it. We won. We basically, he was our favorite player. Anyway, and so we were told him basically to basically start talking to that character more often. So about a month and a half into the game, I played the character, the occultist. I had a Google Voice number on my iPad. I started getting text messages from this player. And so he asked me to create a ritual to save a player in the game. And it was within the world. It made sense. So I literally was at an event in LA, and I'm like, oh crap, it's 10:30. I gotta go home and write a ritual. I gotta send it to someone. I literally did this. And I would send him this ritual. He sent it to the character Lucas and saved Lucas's life for several days. We had to kill this character off, And Zobot was so devastated. You have no idea. Like when he was tweeting, he's like, I can't believe it. I tried so hard to save him. Anyway, that's kind of how characters play it. So in summary, it ran for 3 months. It was designed by 4 people. The content we produced, and this again was all indie. It's a list of websites, blogs, Twitter, email. We sent hundreds of emails. There were phone numbers, there were YouTube videos. And the interesting thing is, oh, wait, go back. Go back. Okay. Number-wise, we started out with 85 initial emails, and we really had about 24 players that were actually interacting. Working with the players on a day-to-day basis, the characters. But we had over 47,000 forum views on unfiction.com, which means there were many, many, many people following the storyline of this game, but not necessarily interacting with the players. And that's the interesting thing that was brought out of this, is that we would see thousands and thousands of numbers of jumps per day when new content was released. Okay, anyway, that's my 10-minute presentation. There's my contact info. Yay, and then...
This was quite something. And, so should I let the cat out of the bag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you all got the ones that actually had the printed names. You got them on a piece of paper. So we are going to have a little mini ARG at the end, and we asked you to actually wait till about 8 to start looking at it. But we are going to have a little mini ARG that Susan created for us tonight, so you can actually experience what it feels like a little bit interacting with a fictionist story world. I know. We're having some tech issues. We're almost there. So now we're going to have Esther Lynn come up. Esther is a well-respected digital marketing leader, transmedia producer, social media strategist, and a game analyst. Esther is currently the executive director of digital experience at George P. Johnson, a global experience marketing agency, and producers of the alternate reality games, The Threshold and The Hunt. Yeah, and it works.
All right.
Yes.
Super. Thank you. Oh, I'm already showing this mic. All right. Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Esther Lim, and I have a very simple presentation because actually I'm more about talking about this than actually going through the beautiful presentation that Susan did. So. Anyway, what's really interesting is that I'm also presenting an alternate reality game, but I think the really interesting contrast here is this was done for a brand versus an indie. And I think this is a really interesting discussion point because we often talk about how indies have a lot more latitude to really play and to be experimental and creative, whereas sometimes when you're creating for a brand, you're restricted by brand guidelines, there are goals, business goals and objectives they have to reach. And we also take a different approach in that we really start at, well, on the customer side. So when you're taking it from a transmedia marketing approach, which is how I'd like to think about this, it's utilizing transmedia methodology, but putting it into a marketing campaign that actually utilizes things like game mechanics and storytelling as a way to introduce product and to teach people. So in this particular instance called Pi Theory, which is a game that we created for Sun Microsystems a couple of years back, and the reason why I can actually talk about this is because the NDA is up, Sun is now owned by Oracle, so all bets are off. So we can talk a little bit more openly about it. I think that's the other thing about transmedia projects is that within the community we want to have more open dialogue, but oftentimes when you are working on projects there's a huge NDA, just sort of legal contract that you're not able to discuss details of a project. So in this particular case I can get into some more details and talk about this game. So in essence, Pi Theory was an alternate reality game designed to launch a product called JavaFX. And JavaFX was a competitor to Flash. And oftentimes, if you know anything about Java, usually the front-end UI is pretty bad, but the back end is really robust. So this product was supposed to answer a couple of things. It was to show web designers and interactive designers that there is this new product out on the market that can actually do beautiful front-end UI. And it also had the ability to jump multiple screens. So you could do it on your laptop, your mobile device, personal devices. So it had the ability to jump screens. So keep that in mind as we talk about this project a little more. The other thing is that Sun was overcoming a challenge. They've been promising this product for 3 years to the developer market, and it hadn't come. So at this point, at the time they were ready to launch, they were pretty dubious. The audience was pretty dubious about what this product was, and Sun really couldn't go out with a traditional product launch. So they really had to come out with something a little bit different that would get the attention of the audience, but kind of engage them as well and make them want to try the product. So we decided we would do an alternate reality game. And this audience is really targeted to 18 to 25-year-old young developers, because we understood that they were very much into gaming. But also doing our homework on customers, we knew that IT people were really into gaming, even up until age 54. So the idea was that we did our customer research, realized that the demographic was really into stories such as X-Files and Mythbusters and that sort of thing. So we knew that they already had a penchant for paranormal activity. So Susan, we have a lot of parallel in our stories, except the way we utilize these concepts are a little different, because yours was purely entertainment, done on an indie level. Ours was entertainment, but done on a branded level, right? So we also had to bake in a lot of things, goals. So one of the goals for this project is we needed to get people to download the SDK and play, and we needed them to learn how to use the SDK, but more than that, we needed to show them through the platform that this product could actually do some beautiful UI. So what you're looking at was built on Java FX. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you now because all the assets are done, not that it's owned by Oracle. So I've got screen grabs left. And essentially, this is the dashboard where a lot of the story takes place, but what happened is this story came across in multiple platforms. So it launched at South by Southwest in 2009, and it was done very virally in the sense that there were a lot of graffiti placed around South by Southwest, and there were lots of little notes left throughout the event that would lead people to this site, and essentially this page. And what you would find out about this is that you'd find the story of these two guys, Baron and Hector, who are essentially fanboys who live in the basement of their parents' home. And they had been they were paranormal investigators, and they made a habit of having a channel on YouTube where it really debunked a lot of things like Sasquatch, and I can't say this, but Chupacabra. Chupacabra and all those other mythologies. And so they would essentially follow or troll people on Facebook and sort of debunk their alien mythologies and debunk the Chupacabra and post all kinds of video segments that would sort of engage people in a conversation about it. But you would start to learn about these characters, and what you've learned is that in this story, they discovered that before every great leap in civilization, there would be a visitation from a spirit. Now, this is actually a true world mythology that we uncovered that happens across 8 countries in the world. Now, the name of the visitation or the creature that comes has a different name, a different look. In some countries, it's a fish coming out of the sea. In other countries, it's coming out of the volcano, but the mythology is the same. There's a visitation, and then there's a leap in civilization, some sort of advancement. So this myth of pi theory is really based on the fact that, you know, before a great leap or advancement in civilization, there's a visitation, so therefore there's the paranormal theme. So we utilize that theme as a way to tie to the notion of the product, which is it's a new advancement in technology that jumps a number of screens. So the underlying story here is it's called The Jump. So these guys are onto this conspiracy theory where they believe there might be a jump coming. They're getting signs that something's about to happen. So they start this group where they ask everybody to come help figure out what's going on. Is there a jump? And as they get into the investigation of whether or not there is going to be another visitation of a jump in civilization, they start to uncover a lot of things, including a protagonist group called the Cartel, who for some reason wants to block this advancement in technology. So the story unfolds, you go in, you log in to become a member of the Pi group, and you help these guys uncover a bunch of stories. And as your story is unrolling, we're releasing a lot of challenges that are essentially Java FX packages and SDKs. And when you download them, the first one down at the bottom is the screen grab for the Pi group. So when you join, you become a slice. And slices help to sort of uncover the mystery. And this is sort of the screensaver that we give out to everyone who joins. And when you join, you get an initiate kit. And inside that kit is the SDK and the IDE, and that's kind of what starts helping to uncover the clues within the product. And as you go through this screen grab, the animation shows that there's clues floating around in there, and every once in a while floating up will be sort of this red word that you can't see that's blurry. So the idea is to get inside the SDK and understand what that clue is, and that clue unlocked a password and a URL that took you to a back-end site where you would start to get sort of an anonymous helper within the organization kind of feeding you clues. So additional sort of ideas that would lead you to different sites or to geocache locations where you could get objects that we've hidden. So throughout the game, we had 6 challenges, and as they started to uncover content, the content would lead them to these challenges, and they would unlock these challenges and start to decode. And in the process, what they were learning how to do was particlism within the screen grabs. They would learn to build an audio player, a video player, text decoders, and so this was a process that they started learning how to use JavaFX. This game ran 3 months. This game ran for 3 months internationally. We reached an audience of 2.5 Java developers, and we had about 250,000 people come on a regular basis. 40,000 followed the story on the site. And interestingly enough, as Susan was saying, when we designed this, we recognized that there were going to be multiple levels of players, right, in terms of participation. You had the 1% who was always diving in and trying to solve problems. So this is one of the fans that played, and she created a whole site. There were many of them that did this, where they created whole sites on how to decode the clues. They would start teaching each other how to code in Java, so that they could uncover the clues and uncover bits of the story which were hidden within the clues. They would lead you to URLs, or they would lead you to geolocation areas where you could get additional content that would then be shared across the forums. So this went on for about 12 weeks. We actually had a live abduction, and many of the players were very concerned about one of the characters who'd been abducted, because one of the things that made this a powerful game is that our writers were also the actors. And so they interacted with this audience every day. They used Facebook as a social profile of the character, where you would see the character's development on Facebook, and you would see them on the forums, and you would have live conversations with them. So in essence, our players actually built real friendships with the characters. The characters were no longer characters, they were friends. So when one actually went missing, they were actually concerned, and they created a meetup space to hunt him down, and we actually staged this where we hid him, and they actually rescued him. So this happened all downtown. It was pretty interesting, because from a legal standpoint, Sun was pretty concerned about that in terms of liabilities and so forth. So we had to wrangle a lot with the legal department to allow us to even do the meet space, which is what it's called when a group of people meet up live and they try to solve a problem and they save the character. So we had that all acted out, and ultimately the end goal was to drive them to Java One, which was a conference for Java developers that happen every year, but also Community One, which is a conference that happens for underage developers, so student developers. And then we actually had a scene play out at the event. So I wish I could show you video of that, but a lot of that was taken down after Oracle bought Sun. So one of the things that Maya asked us to do was talk about sort of what it means to be a transmedia producer in this context. What are some of the challenges that you come across, and what are some of the learnings? So I can tell you that creating an alternate reality game within a branded context where there are restrictions with legal, there are restrictions with brand, there were a lot of challenges, right? First off, education of the client. What the heck are you doing? Why are you doing a marketing campaign that's narrative-based, that has a game-based element, that's also social, and a live theater component? What are you hoping to achieve? So we had to help them meet some business objectives, but we also had to show them that this was a new way to get people to understand what this product was by actually using it, and using it in a fun and entertaining way that had context around it, which is the story. The other thing was building a multidiscipline team. So the first graphic that Maya showed that had the woman holding all the different devices, that's true. We filmed over 65 vignettes that ran over the course of the 3 months. We had a live theater piece going on every day through Twitter, through the Facebook page, and through the forums, where you were actually talking to the characters, and the characters were being themselves. We had fans already picking up phrases that the characters were using. They called them Baronisms, and one actually built a soundboard around all the phrases that Baron Rude, one of the characters, used all the time. And they actually started doing, mimicking their style. So Baron Rude, this character, the one at the bottom, the skull cap, he actually wears a cap with a skull and bones on it. And a lot of the characters started, or a lot of the players started wearing skull and bones, and they actually started shaving their facial hair to look like a goatee to match Baron Root. And they started taking sides because one character was very dominant, very brash, very, you know, in your face. The other one was kind of quiet and intellectual and kind, and so the audience is actually polarized. So when the two characters fought, they took sides. And when one went missing, which was Baron Brood, you know, you had a polarized camp that was arguing about whether or not we should rescue him or not, because he always picked on Hector, which is the quiet one. So I thought that was a real interesting finding too. Some of the other challenges, though, is production. Because we were playing a lot of this on social platforms, we wanted to create a system where we could do a format called dynamic storytelling. And I don't know if you've heard this before. It's been bannered around our community a lot, but it's where you create an open story structure where you don't fill in all the gaps. It's kind of David Lynchian in many ways, where you leave sort of unanswered questions and sandboxes for the community to really kind of chew around. And then what we did was we used social listening tools as a way to hear what they were saying, so we could judge what part of the story made sense, what resonated, what were the conspiracies floating around, and the ones that got the most attention within the community or most buzz, we would write that conspiracy theory into the story arc, which meant that we had to actually change our production schedule. We couldn't shoot everything and have it ready to go. We had to shoot in cycles. So we shot everything in about 4 cycles. The first cycle would go out, we would listen, we would adopt our story, and then we would shoot again the next cycle. And this would continue until the end of the game. So when Susan was saying that one of her characters actually changed the course of the story, many of our audiences changed the courses of our stories, even though we had main arcs. So that was an interesting learning too, that people actually love to write themselves in, and actually it created a lot more loyalty because they saw their conspiracy theories written into the story and then acted out. Know your audience. So this was really important. We couldn't have done this if we didn't do our research on IT people and also young Java developers. It's because we knew they had a penchant for gaming and for gaming for long hours, and that they were very participatory in nature, that we knew we could get away with this campaign and get the kind of numbers that we did. So overall, we had 250,000 watch or come and watch the story unfold. We had 40,000 coming to the forums every day, having engagement with us. We had about a few thousand players, because it's usually about 1% of the total audience that actually creates and plays. So we had about that 1% creating sort of banners, they were creating soundboards, they were creating, you know, the fan site that you saw. They were very active in terms of self-organizing on the forum and actually dividing themselves into groups. So that was really interesting as well. Set measurable goals. When you're working within a brand, it is so important because somebody has to be accountable. Our budget for this, and I can disclose, was $1 million. Our working capital was actually about $750,000 because it went through an agency, so they had to take their cut. So we were doing this with a team of team of five over the course of 3 months, and it took about 10 months to plan and then launch for that 3-month period. What we found out was that when we were playing internationally, we were only developing for English, but because our fans were so rabid, they were actually translating our videos into their local language so that they could follow. Wow. South America was one of our biggest fans. Oddly enough, so was Finland. Content planning. So I always knew with an ARC that the fans are rabid, and we knew this with unfiction because the moment it hit unfiction, it just sort of spread out. Michael Anderson covered it on a couple of their ArgNet podcasts, and we got a lot of attention from that. We also got a lot of attention because student groups across the universities that were doing Java development got a hold of this game, and it became sort of a competition between groups. So we did plan for creating a lot of content because we knew they would consume a lot of it, but what we also learned is they consume probably 3 times more than you think they're going to consume. So we ended up writing in new episodes throughout the way, which is great because we had a structure that was evolving and allowing that social narrative to take place. Story cadence. So that really comes down to learning how frequently you need to release content. So what we found was we started out with about 2 episodes a week. And as we started to increase that over time because of the demand and people wanting to know what's happening and coming back all the time to check, we increased it to 3 to 4. So it became quite a number of episodes. In fact, I pretty much lost track. I think it was over 65 at the end. But the more we put out, the more they came, and the longer they stayed, and the longer they were in the forums having discussions. It was not uncommon for us, the entire team, to be on the forum for 3 hours talking to the entire audience base that was playing our game. And then organic brand integration. So I think some of the challenges when you're creating this kind of experience for a brand is trying not to make it seem like it's a commercial. And one of the things that we did really well with this, and that I want to give Sun Microsystems, that team, the kudos, is that they really allowed us to be authentic, meaning we could say things like shit, right? Which in most corporate worlds, you can't say that. But they wanted us to be authentic, and you know, if you're running from something that's scary, you're not going to say, oh golly gosh, I'm going to run now. You say shit and you get the hell out. So we were able to use that type of language, so that was great. And also, we didn't slap them with the Sun brand all the time. What they were doing was they were interacting with the brand all the time, about 3 hours a day, 20 hours or 21 hours a week on average is what we were spending in terms of time with our audience. And they were touching that Sun brand because they were always on the Java platform. If they were consuming content on the microsite, they were touching the Java platform. If they were solving challenges, they were touching the Java platform. So in essence, they were interacting with the brand the entire time during that 3-month period. And then surprise learnings. Well, we thought that 18 to 25 would be rabid players. The second rabid player group was 44 to 54, playing an average of 2 hours a day with us. That was great. I didn't figure IT guys had that much time, but they actually made time because the story was good, and you're always going to hear that in the community. It's all about the story. It doesn't matter how many game interactions we had, we just had great characters that our audience loved. And because they interacted with them, it was a friendship. So you were coming back there to banter with these guys because they were funny, and they were rowdy, and they were fanboys, and they had common interests with our audience. South America, oh my gosh. That country rocked. They were grabbing our videos the moment we posted them. They were translating them, they were sharing them, they created Orchid groups, they created MySpace groups. They were amazing. And in fact, I had a few people write me after the game telling me that they changed their majors to become media majors because of this game. So I was pretty flattered by that. Fans are self-organizing. So one of the big challenges about running an ARG on a small team is that resources, right? You either stay up and forego sleep for the amount of time that you're doing it. Susan's shaking her or nodding her head, so she totally understands. But one of the things that I found within social media and also with this game was, in the absence of like a set leader, people do self-organize. The advocates within the group start to divide. So what we started seeing happening within our community is people would say, okay, you're really good at researching, so when they send out any clues using cuneiform or what those symbols mean and do the translation. So there was a research team that went off and researched. Then we had another team that was a conspiracy theory team, and they were trying to figure out all the clues and try to figure out where the cartel was, and in the case where Baron Rude was abducted, they were putting all the clues together to find the geo coordinates to find where he would be rescued, which is the meat space that we ended up having. So we didn't do anything, they kind of self-elected, and then they followed each other's orders. So that was great, and they were really great about onboarding new players too, because I think the other challenge about an alternate reality game is you have a lot of stories in a lot of places. We had audio files hidden, we had geolocation, cache items, we had live events, we had video, we had social narrative going on across social platforms, we had a dialogue going on Chatter. So it's really hard that you could touch any one of these touch points and find yourself in the middle of the story, and if you didn't join the story from the start, it's very hard to figure out how to get back to the beginning and understand where you are. So it's really important when you get to a community that there's someone there that helps you on board, and we had that as well. And then last, live interaction builds stronger loyalty. So in a lot of games, sometimes you're just sort of interacting with the content. In this particular case, you were interacting with the characters almost daily. So it was a form of live theater, and that's really what created this fierce loyalty in our minds, where they stuck with us the entire 3 months of the game, to the very end, to the finale. So that's some of the key learnings of my presentation. Thanks.
Interesting to see the difference between the brands and what a brand would let you do versus the independents, but definitely ARGs are such an interesting space in the whole transmedia universe, because they're definitely transmedia, and the other thing is they show a lot how the fans and audiences interact. So next on, we actually have Lynn's, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, too much technology. Just so that you realize that our dear friends here at Westernized, their clicker didn't work, so this is an app that was downloaded about an hour ago. So
what's the app?
My Point PowerPoint remote. It works great. It's free.
Wow.
Right? Thank you. So, yeah, as I'm just loading this. So we have Lynn Tam come and speak with us now. Lynn is a co-founder of Transmedia, a mobile iPad app helping gamers find iOS games in the crowded app market. So definitely your how to get to the fun games and get through all that sound and all the extra noise that you have to go through when you're actually trying to find a fun game, which is extremely helpful. As a co-founder, Lynn is responsible for guiding the company's strategy and growth through entertainment partnerships, technology, innovation, and market visibility. Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Lynn. I'm going to move this up a little higher. And I'm the co-founder of Transmedia. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you guys about what it took for us to make this app and the obstacles we encountered. So I'm going to pull the veil a little bit so you can really see the heartache and headaches that we went through. Okay. So I'm going to talk about it from a producing perspective. I'm going to talk about it in 3 key points. The first one is from idea to execution. What did it really take? The next thing is navigating through the chaos, because there was a lot of chaos that we went through. And then thirdly, you know, it's the market changes that's happening. That is still going on. And I'll go through that as well. So for those of you who don't know, Transmedia started out as an iPad app first. It's now available obviously on the iPhone and so forth, but you know, Transmedia is an iPad app that started off to help gamers find games they want to play, particularly mobile games, right? And our focus was game discovery through videos. We thought that was really important because when you look at the iTunes store, it's still images, and we wanted to push that market, and so that was the area that we looked into. So when we decided on that concept, the first thing we started asking ourselves as a team is, what the hell are we building? Like, what do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on everything that's app discovery with all apps? Or did we want to pick a particular niche and, you know, showcase that niche to help that niche? And for us, since we made games on the side, we felt that it would be great to, you know, create an app discovery for gamers. Particularly, you know, in the essence of video and audio, even in the rating systems. It's just a different world in the gaming market. And so once we figured out that niche, that's what we wanted to do, we started laying out some of our basic guidelines, right? And so our basic guidelines was, one, we knew we wanted to do a mobile app. We knew that. We also knew we wanted to do gaming. We knew that video would be a key component in our app. And we also knew that there would be social interactivity to it. So those were the 4 pillars that we started off as. Our next big problem that we had was, how are we going to do this, right? It sounds great and all of that, but really how? And it took us a long time to figure it out. It was not easy, just given the fact that there was so much data and so many feature sets in the SDK kit that we had to cut back on a lot of features and a lot of trade-offs. So as a producer, this is where order and chaos came in. And I can tell you, we had a lot of chaos before order settled in. We had a lot of chaos in regards to, you know, what Apple would allow us to see. You know, chaos in regards to, could we hack something to make it work? And also the chaos of, you know, we see other apps doing it, but how the hell are they doing it, and why can't we do it? So I want to talk about that, because it was quite a journey. So the first thing we decided to do was we had to research our competitors, right? And I like this slide a lot, because we were originally going to charge for our app. And so we looked at our competitors, and they were giving it away for free. And so we were like, damn it, we can't charge for it. We got to give it away for free too, and you know, in order to do that, that will help us build our user base. So when we started looking at our competitors, we began to see, one, what were they doing well at? You know, what were they falling short at? What made us different? What could we do better than they could do? And then more importantly, why do people want to use us, right, as opposed to one of our other competitors? And so we started off with the design. And as I said, I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit so you can see the things that we went through. So, you know, when we started looking at our competitors, we liked certain things that they did well design-wise and things that we thought we could do better. So in our case, we knew that video would be a focal point in our app. And we knew that video, playing it, you would continue to be in our app, you know, until the final point when you had to buy it, right? And that's the only time you left our app. So in our case here, as you can see from the design, the video here is the focal point on the left from our wireframes. We had the social elements, the Twitter and Facebook. We had the rating systems, you know, we had the game descriptions, we had the comments. On the bottom, we had more video reviews too, so that you weren't just given one trailer to look at, but you could look at other trailers, other commentaries of games to help the consumer make a stronger purchasing decision. And we knew that from a design perspective, especially because it was an app, and it was an iPad app, it had to be cool, it had to be, you know, sleek, and we had to build in a lot of the features and integrations that were available in that SDK kit and push it to its max, right? And so, as you can see, the design here has a very gaming-like feel. Even the buttons, when you touch it and it highlights, it has a blue highlight effect. The other thing that we did was that, you know, we knew that a game is one big general category, but within the game, there's a lot of genres, such as racing, action, adventure, sports, etc. And we needed a way to build out that usability so you can filter the games by genres. And so we designed it where that when you slide down on our slider of the iPad app, you could choose that particular genre. In fact, with our technology, we could create our own custom genres. So today, if you know we wanted to set up a genre just for Christmas games or hearts games, we could do that within 10 minutes and you would have that button ready on the go. Because that was a difference in our technology in figuring out what we could do on the server side and then on the front end side of things. The other thing too we wanted to do was interactivity from a social perspective. So you can see, of course, you know, what your friends were playing, what you were playing, and it was really important because, you know, from a gaming perspective, you always want to know what your friends are playing so that, you know, you could challenge them and so forth. Another cool thing that we added was what we call tweet ranks. We wanted to unveil what were the 250 top games people were talking about on Twitter before they became a hit. Before Angry Birds became a hit, it was flying off Twitter's charts, right? And so we built this in so that, you know, people could begin to see what was trending, and it was an easy way to see it within our app. I listed here some of the technical specs that we had to write. So one of the things as a producer, especially in my world, I come from a technical background. So I had to wear a technical hat as well. So when I'm in the meetings with the back-end architectures, developers, I had to make sure that the specs made sense to begin with and that we could build it and scale it properly. And not only that, but then work with the front-end developers to make sure that they were grabbing the correct web services. We had a lot of data ingestion. We ingest millions of data every day from Apple, right? And so we had to test to make sure that the data that was being presented was accurate from the server side all the way to the client side. And then not just that, but also how do you present the data? So we had to work, you know, with the UI designers to make sure that how are we presenting the data? Does it look good? You know, does it make sense? And I like this picture a lot because we've touched upon it so far in juggling a lot of balls, right? And it's exactly what I did as a producer, especially as a co-founder. It was even worse because then I was looking at, you know, the bottom line, the budgets and so forth, and it was the trade-offs of features, right? It was like, if we add this feature, what will it cost us? You know, what will it break? Because in code, if you add something, chances are it may break something else, and if it breaks something else, that might delay the deliverable. And so it was a lot of back and forth in that sense, and a lot of internal coordination within the team. And there was a lot of external coordination with Apple as well. We had to build our relationship with Apple, right? Because we were using their data. And we had to make sure that if there was problems within the data, we had a contact person at Apple so that they could help us with it. And it was a big deal because this was a huge game changer for us, right? Because, you know, the Android market obviously was growing on Apple's tail, and so Apple wanted to make sure that people like ourselves, the publishers and developers, had access so that we could help gain their market share. So they were really helpful in allowing us to use their data sets, right? And in ingesting certain types of data that we needed to use to make our app viable. Now, as a game producer and as a co-founder, I think this picture says a lot, especially for Transmedia, right? Even though we were doing games, we integrated video into our app, right? And not only did we integrate video into our app, we actually created a division called Spaz TV where we did our own video game reviews. So we had our own little TV production company too, right? And then on top of that, we had to make sure that, you know, what we were producing was matching the mobile content, the TV content, PC, and the emerging technology, especially with the release of, you know, the SDK kits. You always want to be on top of it because it's those features within that SDK kit that pushes your product forward. And it's a challenge in that sense as a transmedia producer because you're asked to wear two different hats, one in technology and one in entertainment. And as the convergence begins to happen stronger, you know, it's really important to have, you know, your feet in both worlds so that when you walk into conversations or meetings, you understand exactly what they're talking about from a technical perspective so that you can make the right decisions for your product. And I think that's a big, big separation, and what makes great transmedia's producers stand out is they can deal with that separation of both worlds. I kind of want to show you guys just a snapshot of our trailer.
Our final speaker before we get to our panel tonight is Elise. She is from Innovant, Transmedia TV, Transmedia. Co-founder and CMO of Innovant Transmedia, the drive to affect social change using transmedia as a conduit has driven her to work with organizations that overlap visual arts, educational reform, and human rights issues. Yeah, Jennifer? Just view screen? Yeah. Slideshow? You were there. There we go. It's almost here. It's almost here. Sure, it's just okay, sure. Just nod your head.
Okay. So I'm going to speak a little bit about transmedia activism. In preparation for this, I reached out to Jeff Gomez, who's kind of the guru of transmedia, and to my surprise, he responded immediately in the middle of a hurricane when his office was out of power and the city was flooding, and he still held the meeting with me. So this is loosely based on his Transmedia 10 Commandments, only altered for the indie scene. So one of the first things he said to me was, good transmedia production contributes to the long-term health of the intellectual property. But I guess the way I wanted to shift it is, does good transmedia production contribute to the long-term health of the producer? And really focus on the producer and for this discussion. So transmedia production is an investment in time, passion, and energy. How can we ensure the sustainability as producers? I mean, I find myself, and I know a lot of the other producers are kind of starving artists. They work really hard, and they think of the art first, and they think of the end result first. But to take a step back and think about what can I do to keep this going, and so we've developed a kind of a system of success metrics, and I think it's really important to set aside some time before choosing a production to get involved with to analyze your return on that investment in time and energy. So basically, we've developed a risk-reward velocity, and it gives everything a number on what's important to you on this production, and quantifying the success or predicting the success in assessing project potential. So this screen is my personal risk-reward velocity diagram. So before I get involved in a project, I look at, is this going to ignite my team's passion? Is it something that we all think is super cool? Do they have the financial stability to execute this? And what is their strategy for success? And then we go ahead and look at all of the people involved and their team experience. And one of the biggest things on our list is the social impact of the project. Is it going to activate people? We assess the experience, reputation and previous success of the team members. And then we also look at how that fits in with Innovent's other projects in our portfolio. Okay, we've decided to take on a project and we want to brainstorm how it's going to pan out. So we start really big. We think of everything without constraints. Take out time, take out budget. What would we do if we had the whole world to? And we basically reinvent everything. We push the boundaries, we think of new technologies, and we think of new ways in storytelling and ways to activate. And then we have to kind of pull back and think real, and come back to earth, and pare back, and not just get excited about a new technology or an emerging, but what can we do well, which elements, not to choose them all because of it's impressive, but what's going to fit in with that storytelling. So I thought a really good case study to show for this was, we worked with StoryCorps from NPR, and they've got a massive library of interviews and stories. And we did it at POV, their first hackathon in Brooklyn as mentors. And we basically we had 48 hours. We spent 24 of those hours thinking big. And we had a lot of amazing ideas on ways to navigate this massive library of content. And then on the last 24 hours, we're like, oh no, we've got to come up with something. So we had to pare back to something. But also it's quite a sensitive subject because the core narrative is so precious to them. And an audio podcast is quite a magical thing. It's not like a normal broadcast media, because you have to practice active listening to be involved in it. And your imagination sort of develops that story in your own head. So to place pictures and make a visual component of this podcast would be stealing a little bit of that magic of your own recalling of memories and your own identifying with that person that's being interviewed. So what we did was we came up with a sentiment analysis, which took words, abstracted words from the interview, and turned them into a color. So basically, you'll see in this slideshow, just basically, no, you'll click on
on the website.
a color that relates to an emotion that relates to the story.
From a scale of 1 to 10, do you think your life would be different without animals?
I think it would be an 8 without animals because they add so much pleasure to life.
How else do you think your life would be different without them?
I could do without things like cockroaches and snakes.
Well, I'm okay with snakes as long as they're not venomous or like to constrict you or anything.
Yeah, I'm not a big snake person.
But cockroach is just the insect we love to hate.
Yeah, it really is.
Have you ever felt like life is hopeless?
When I was a teenager, I was very depressed. And I think that can be quite common with teenagers who think a lot, you know, and are perceptive.
Am I like that?
You were very much like that.
Do you have any mortal enemies?
I would say my worst enemy is sometimes myself. But I don't think I have any mortal enemies.
Have you ever lied to me?
I probably have, but I try not to lie to you, even though sometimes the questions you ask make me uncomfortable.
Like when we go on our walks, some of the questions I might ask.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel it's really special that you and I can have those kind of talks, even if sometimes I feel myself blushing a little bit.
Have you ever thought you couldn't cope with having a child?
I remember when you were a baby, you had really bad colics and you just cry and cry.
What's colic?
It's when you get a stomach ache and all you do is scream for like 4 hours.
Even louder than Amy does?
You were pretty loud, but Amy's was more high-pitched.
I think it feels like everyone seems to like Amy more, like she's like the perfect little angel.
Well, I can understand why you think that people like Amy more, and I'm not saying it's because of your Asperger's syndrome, but being friendly comes easily to Amy, whereas I think for you it's more difficult. But the people who take the time to get to know you love you so much.
Like Ben or Eric or Carla.
Yeah.
And like I have better quality friends but less quantity.
I don't judge the quality, but I think...
I mean, first thing is like Amy loves Claudia, then she hated Claudia, she loved
Yeah,
Claudia,
you know what, part of that's a girl thing, honey. The important thing for you is that you have very good friends, and really that's what you need in life.
Did I turn out to be the son you wanted when I was born? Did I meet your expectations?
Okay, well that gives you a taste of it. Unfortunately, got a little out of sync there, but so basically, you'd see this color that the collected community feels represented that word, like mortal enemies. It's obviously going to be red, and that was as far as we needed to go because that core medium was so strong. And the last thing we wanted to do with fancy tech or whatever is interrupt that amazing story. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, if we're okay on time, is especially as social activists or a social cause documentary, most people don't understand the value that they have. You know, being able to activate a community or some good storytelling is a pretty amazing thing, and we're also seeing a shift away from the broadcast paradigm right now, which was value equals reach plus demographic. Transmedia embraces the relationship now with the audience, and it is more about value equals the audience and the relationship. So audience equals value, pretty much. It's not airtime or commercials. So good stories garner a following. When audience are captivated by a story, they take action. And that's what we want. And brand integration, they want that as well. So here's a case study in sustainable business models. This project I met through BAVAC, the Producers Institute, where we were mentors, and it was Jason DeSilvia and his film When I Walk, which was about a disabled filmmaker. And after the film was done, it was such a success that he wanted to take it to the next level and give a platform for the disabled community to voice their opinions on access to restaurants, to retail places. And they had no idea what they had in their hand with this storytelling. Activating the disabled community was a pretty awesome thing. There are huge numbers in it, and giving them a platform to voice their opinions made a lot of retail chains a little nervous, to say the least. And so we developed a certification where you could become Access Map certified. So we would go out and inspect their place, and then we did. We got a lot of corporate sponsorship through that. So this project's going on its third year now, which is pretty awesome for social cause documentary. We crowdsourced the content, so people would go out. If they went to Starbucks or McDonald's or just their neighborhood shop and they couldn't get in, they would talk about it. Or if they had great ease, then they would talk about that too. So it came from a number of places. We also got crowdsourced funding, philanthropic funding from BAVAC, Nathan Cummings, and then we had live events, which was like a flash mob where we'd have like 100 disabled people walking down the street, grading places. So that was fun. Pandemic. This was the first transmedia project I ever did. To say the least, I was thrown into the deep end. It was done by Lance Wheeler at Sundance 2011. And one call to Google, and we had a good portion of our project funded with materials. They gave us the new Nexus S was launching at that time, or the Galaxy, and so we were able to give them to some of the key people at Sundance to experience. So a guide to the universe of transmedia activism would be creating a living document that evolves and changes direction as the project takes shape. A lot of the really pedantic planners out there will want something that is all written in stone, but unfortunately that's not the case with transmedia. It kind of takes on a life of its own, and you have to kind of roll with it. So, but developing a style guide, and then developing that character and voice. So you'll understand your character, that's all right, you understand your audience. And then create procedures for decision making, just those regular intervals to assess, okay, it's going this way. Let's roll with the punches. And then this is the most important one, is validating your audience and celebrating the audience participation, and then recognizing it and rewarding it. And I put this quote from Oprah because I was really touched by it on her last show. She said that I've talked to nearly 30,000 people on this show, and all 30,000 had one thing in common. They all wanted validation. So this is an example of immersing yourself into the character role. I did a graphic novel. This is one of my favorite projects. It's a bit of fun with magnetic poets. So yeah, there's a couple screenshots. So for the producers and Emmy Award-winning composers, it was interactive music up. To get into the character, they actually dressed up. So this last video is just some clips of that. Go back. That one, yeah. Just click on it. No, that one. Okay, well, I'll have to put it online. If you go to inevent.tv, you can have a look at them strutting their stuff in Kerouac Alley before. And this is my favorite one. Good things come to those who wait, not really. Good good things come to those who work their ass off.
So can I invite all our speakers to join me on the sofa there? Jennifer, can we get our Transmedia SF one? Can you all fit there? Can I sit on the open chair? You'd sit in the open chair. I'll sit in the open chair. Oh, perfect.
So please tweet away. First of all, thank you, ladies. This was really, really great. And this part of our panel, I'll start with a few questions, but then if anybody's really wanting to start interacting and talk with our lovely producers, please raise your hand and we'll start a little bit more of interaction. Sorry, I was getting my notes.
I already have a question.
Nope. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, this is to Lynn Tam of Transmedia.
Yes.
I just wondered, what is your model for making money, given the fact that you're doing this for free?
That's a great question. So our model is the following, is that we make money off of the ads, and then anytime anybody buys an app through us, we take a cut of it as well. And since we produce our own content, we also are able to put ads within our content.
How did people buy an app from you? I thought.
So within our app, we've designed it that when you want to buy an app that you've seen within our app, you just click on Get It, and then it takes you to the App Store, and so we get a cut of that.
Oh.
Actually, associated with that, you get to do a special deal with Apple or get the cut? Or how did that cut process work?
Yeah, it was building our relationships through Apple. It was, I think, a big part of also being, a co-founder and producer is the fact that it was building partnerships, right, and the relationships. And with that particular one, it took a long time to build that relationship.
So let's start with a little bit of what is a transmedia producer's role. And I've quoted Gary Hayes tonight because I was actually in preparation. I was looking at both his books and websites and Bernardino, right, books. And one of the things, and that's why I also put on the goddess, the many-armed goddess image, because really, in Gary's eyes, to be a transmedia producer, you have to have a unique balance of a social media expert, wisdom of crowds and gaming, multi-level, responsive, dynamic, and richer, static knowledge of the story world. And he also even says if you're considering becoming or calling yourself transmedia producer, make sure you're experienced or deeply embedded across games, films, TV, media businesses, social media, advertising, web tech. If not, consider becoming a great multi-platform team manager. So really, where do you even start? And if you actually can interject with something personal, where do you even start becoming a transmedia producer, working on multi-platform experiences, or basically managing the different silos, which is definitely something that you've been going through a lot. I know that you started with children's books as well and DVDs. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So maybe we can start with you.
Yeah. So in my world, I think I fell into it because I really enjoy technology mixed with entertainment, right? And even when I started producing children's animation, we were pushing at the time Flash technology to make shows for direct DVD. And at the time that was unheard of because the Flash technology was for web. And so when we pushed that and we were able to make these directed DVDs, and we ended up winning a bunch of awards from educational shows. And I even went to Cannes, France to accept an award, beating out tons of other animation companies. It was the stepping stone of building the credentials of being a transmedia producer. I didn't know at the time, but when